Ladies and gents, great to see you again. Welcome back to Lessons by the Lake, the Oswego Private Wealth Show. Ryan Ruff here, your moderator, but as always, I've got my right-hand man in Bob Bedritis, the Managing Director of Oswego Private Wealth, standing by. He's going to jump on board with me in just a moment. But look, we've got also a great guest that's going to be joining us, as you guys well know. We love to bring esteemed guests from Bob's professional network and talk through some of their expertise, and boy, do we have a great one today. Today, we've got David Howitt, the founder and CEO of the Merriweather Group, who David also is a New York Times bestselling author for his book, Heed Your Call. And we're going to be diving into a really near and dear concept to David's heart, and that is this idea of the founder's journey or the entrepreneurial endeavors that pop up on that road to success for an entrepreneur, especially in today's day and age. So before we bring David out here and get into all the good stuff that surrounds this journey, let's say hi to Bob first. Bob, good to see you. How you doing today?
Ryan, great to see you. Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, always good to get together, and I'm really excited for today's conversation. We've had it circled on the calendar for quite some time now. Bob, why don't you frame things up for our audience from your perspective? Why do we want to bring David onto the show today, and what's kind of the impetus of today's conversation?
Well, fantastic. Well, David and I we're a recent friendship and a growing friendship. Just love getting to know David and all the accomplishments that he's made. And David is an accomplished entrepreneur. He went to school at Denison University in Ohio, a place near and dear to my heart. We even found out we have mutual friends from Denison, and I went to Miami, of course, but spent some time at Denison teaching tennis in the summers. So I know that campus well, and I didn't have to take any tests or have any stress when I was there. So we had different experiences, I'm sure. But David is, as I said, an accomplished entrepreneur. He went to Denison University, Lewis and Clark Law School. He was corporate counsel for Adidas in the early years, and then he began his entrepreneurial journey in his kitchen, creating the iconic brand Oregon Chai with his partner Heather. And they built that business, started it in 1994, and out of their kitchen, and then ultimately built that business. Within 6 short years. The brand had spread to 40 countries across 5 continents, and they sold the business in 2004 for $75 million. And then David founded Merriweather Group. It's a boutique equity business accelerator advisory firm that supports some of the most disruptive and recognized consumer brands in the country that we would all know. He's worked with companies like Stumptown, Pendleton, Adidas, Voodoo Donuts, Dave's Killer Bread, Oregon Chai, of course, ABC, Carpet and Home, Laughing Planet, Nautilus, Chefworks, Bar3, Xterra. The list goes on, many more. So I couldn't be more excited to have Dennis on here. And as he does his work in helping founders fulfill their journey, which both he and his team have professionally and personally done themselves. So he comes from a place where he speaks with a great deal of authority, sincerity, and credibility in my eyes. And I think our audience will feel the same way.
Awesome. Well, with that, let's go ahead and welcome David Howitt to the show. David, thanks so much for carving some time out of your busy schedule to join us, and welcome to the show.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Ryan, and Bob. Thank you for that great introduction. I'm really honored and pleased to be here with you.
Well, it's a privilege. So let's just come kind of right out of the gate. As we all know, anybody listening to this and anybody who's an entrepreneur and started a business, it is not a straight line, is it? There are ups and downs. So could you share a story of a time with a founder that you work with that had a major setback and how they overcame it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be pleased to, Bob. You're so right. The journey is never a straight line. I think that's actually good, right? We get to take journeys in our lives. We get to have entrepreneurial endeavors. Some of those might result in, companies that we sell. Others might be more personal journeys. But in this one life we have the opportunity to listen to that voice inside of us that is asking us, guiding us to experience a journey and to leave our known world. So I could give you a handful of examples, but maybe the one that immediately comes to mind is my dear friend Dave Dahl, who is the founder of Dave's Killer Breads. So I met Dave at the Portland State University Farmers Market, and he had just finished 15 years of federal prison. 3 5-year stints for drug and alcohol related crimes based on the fact that he had an undiagnosed mental health condition and substance abuse. And during those 15 years of incarceration, finally, he was able to receive the necessary help he needed. And his last job before leaving prison was working in the prison commissary kitchen, where he came up with a way to make healthy bread. His family here in Oregon had a small family bakery in Milwaukee, Oregon. And when Dave came out of prison, he asked his family if he could have the graveyard shift and try to make this new bread that he had learned how to make while in prison. And they reluctantly gave him the opportunity because he had burned a lot of bridges over those previous years. I met Dave at the farmer's market, 6'4", 225-pound guy, mirrored sunglasses, hair pulled back in a big ponytail, and he looked like a felon. The bread would sell out by 10 a.m. People lined up for it. There was something about the bread that was really delicious. And he asked me, can you help me manifest this business? I shook his hand and agreed to do what I could to help him on that journey. To your point on that journey not being a straight line, we, over the course of years, worked hard to help him create a North Star for a meaningful business that could grow into something significant financially and continue to support and hire ex-cons who are coming out of prison and needing opportunity, all the while also subscribing to 100% local, 100% sustainable. Tall order. It's hard enough to grow a business, but when you layer on top of that the need to be certified organic, certified fair trade, certified sustainable, and have 40% of your workforce be felons, led by someone who had spent 15 years in prison, people would have said to me, David, you're crazy. Why are you aligning with this business? But I saw in him the hero's heart. And I saw in him the purity of soul and the desire to bring something to the market that would change the way consumers interacted with bread, which, pun intended, was a stale category. The category of bread had become boring. There was white bread and brown bread, all in the same wrapper, no differentiation. And as a capitalist and a student of the consumer, we asked ourselves, where has the consumer been deprived of innovation? And clearly that was the case. Over a period of time, that business grew to this year doing over 1 billion in revenue, a billion from the farmer's market. And along the way, Dave suffered serious mental health challenges. He was arrested. He was incarcerated again. He had material issues with family members, but we stayed steady. We stayed true to his heart and his belief. And now there's a global brand that is touching the hearts of people and the stomachs of people in healthy and wonderful ways. The journey is never direct. And if you know Joseph Campbell's work around mythology, and one myth in particular, the hero's journey. In the hero's journey, the hero doesn't know they're a hero. And this has been a myth that has been central to all time, all geography, all different spiritual or religious beliefs. It's the background for The Wizard of Oz, for Star Trek, for Avatar, for Star Wars, and the list goes on. You have this reluctant hero. It frankly could be any of us. You're born in your known world. For me, it was East Grand Rapids, Michigan. And there's some level of ego that wants to keep us in that known world. It's safer to stay in the known world. But there's myths about those who stay in the known world. And there are things like the death of a salesman. The staying in the known world is limiting. It doesn't allow us to experience whatever word you want to use, God's will, the universe's will, our soul's will for what our life might be. Dave stepped out of his known world. You have stepped out of your known world, Bob, as have I. Simply put, the Merriweather Group is here to lock arms with people who have left their known world and started their journey, and to provide them with the tools they need to reach their defining moment.
Well, wow, that's unbelievable. I love that story. I didn't know all that. I thought I knew Dave's story to some degree. I didn't. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
When I think about running a business, you hit those obstacles, you hit them fairly on, you have a dream, you have a vision, you have a goal. If you're thoughtful and circumspect, you have a why early on. Oftentimes that why does this, Simon Sinek and the why, and fulfilling that hero's journey. As you said, the hero doesn't know he or she is a hero early in the journey.
Right.
How do you work with individuals? Because it's the human element, right? You're not working with a
Absolutely.
company, you're not working with brick and mortar, you're working
No.
with real people. How do you walk them through that process? What kind of stuff do you see?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. You're spot on. So, hopefully most of your listeners have seen The Wizard of Oz. So this I think will be instructive in answering your question. So Dorothy, if you recall, lives in Kansas on a dirt farm. It's a black and white film. That's how it starts. And she has something inside of her that's gnawing at her. There's more to life than a grainy black and white film with her, living on a dirt farm. And so she's whisked away by a tornado. And that's ultimately how it often feels to us when we choose to leave our known world. And if you recall again from that film, she lands in Oz and suddenly it's colorful and beautiful and there's people singing and there's joy and she's overwhelmed in a really good way. This is what it can feel like when we quit our job at Nike or we leave corporate finance and we say, I'm going to go do something myself. I'm going to follow this heart-centered desire, this whisper that has been saying to me, go be a baseball coach or go start this business or whatever it may be. But that's short-lived. And almost always following that euphoric moment of leaving your known world, hey, I quit my job, I'm going to do this thing, is what Joseph Campbell refers to as the abyss. And for Dorothy, it was puff, a burst of green smoke, and there's a witch. And the witch says, silly girl, you've dropped your house on my sister, I'm going to get you. Well, Dorothy's a young woman from Kansas with a dog in a basket. She's not equipped to fight a witch. That doesn't add up. Yep. That is what happens for us at the Merriweather Group. We get a lot of people who come in here. They've started to heed their call. They've started on their path and they've had that abyss moment. And it's when that happens that actually possibility is the highest. And this is an important point because we're taught incorrectly that failure or surrender is bad. But often, in the case for the hero or the entrepreneur, it's those first failures that allows them to finally open themselves up to the mentorship and guidance that they need. When we see people who have come in who have not yet experienced that, we often know it's too early for us to help because they're know-it-alls. They think they've got it all figured out. None of us have it all figured out, including me, right? So it's after those bumps where they say, oh crap, I have a mortgage. I've got kids in college. I quit the job. I don't have the 401k, the business card, and I thought I knew what I was doing, but what the heck does supply chain mean? What is margin? That's when we can come in and do our best work, the human quality. There's an old Buddhist saying, the teacher appears when the student is ready. And it takes that moment of surrender and letting go where we can really do our best work. And again, that's where possibility and creativity is at its highest.
Wow, that's thank you for that. I mean, so when the founder hits that wall, that abyss, I like that term, abyss, and he needs to go through that abyss. What kind of qualities, what kind of character qualities, what kind of self-assessment needs to be done at that stage?
You used all the right words, Bob. So at that point, that's when the founder, needs to or is able to realize, hey, I need mentors and guides. I have my skills, but I don't know everything. I'm open to the universe guiding me and helping me. And I'm humble and I'm self-aware and I'm driven and confident. It's okay to be driven and confident and humble and insecure. We get to be both at the same time. And it's those qualities that we find usually are the ingredients to a successful life and, frankly, a successful entrepreneurial endeavor.
Yeah, I'll throw my quote out there, which is from the Bible, which is, when I am weak, then I am strong.
Amen.
And
Amen.
it's when you need help to get to the next stage. Because many entrepreneurs, they have that jump, they have that thing that validates and collaborates and said, okay, this is a business that's profitable, I'm cash flowing, I'm going there. And then time passes and you go, I'm not happy, I'm
Correct.
not growing. I'm not sure I'm really growing my people. I'm not sure the markets are growing. What has to happen then? Well, I suppose nothing has to happen then, but what kinds of things help get that stale entrepreneur out and helps them scale at that point?
Amazing. So again, back to Dorothy, right? So she has her abyss moment. The witch is going to get her, and she says, okay, I'm going to start walking the path. And in that movie, it's actually the yellow brick road. It's the path, the journey. And if you and your listeners recall, on that yellow brick road, she meets the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion. And if you recall, the Tin Man is there because he is searching for a heart. The Scarecrow is there. He is searching for a brain. And the Lion is there because he's searching for courage. These are time-honored things that founders and entrepreneurs need to learn about and about themselves as it relates to intellect, heart, culture, fear, acceptance, courage. And so as she walks the path, she has trials and tribulations, flying monkeys, witches, opium fields that lull her to sleep. And during those times, her mentors and guides help her through those. And she starts to see herself in a different light. She's growing. Campbell, in his work, refers to those as the tools of transformation. So for us, with the entrepreneur, as we walk the path with them, we're helping them understand on the right brain side, purpose, meaning, culture, people, beauty, storytelling, community, faith. On the left brain side, P&L, balance sheets, margin, supply chain, consumer, distribution, sales, marketing, legal, ops. And we're trying to marry those together as we walk the path. And it's those tools of transformation that hopefully allows that entrepreneur, that founder, to reach what Joseph Campbell referred to as their defining moment. Okay. We all have, if we take this journey and we're fortunate enough, we have defining moments. In the case of Dorothy, she says, and she thinks from the get-go, my goal, my defining moment is to go see, quote, the great and all-powerful Wizard of Oz. And I think she says it 58 times during her journey. Well, we know there is no great and all-powerful wizard. And I'll tell your listeners, there never is. That is not the purpose of the journey, to find something outside of ourselves that is going to somehow complete us. She reaches Oz. There is no great and all-powerful wizard. But one of her guides and mentors, Glinda, the good witch, says to her, silly girl, all you needed to do was click your heels together 3 times. You've always had the power. You just didn't know it. And that's the beauty of taking the journey. What we all realize is the journey was about our own heroic journey, our own stepping into our hero-ness, the divinity in each of us that we are imbued with as a result of being born and living this life. The touch of God, the hand of God, the breath of God, whatever language you want to use. And I don't have a dog in the hunt. You can use any word you want. In my historic faith, having grown up Jewish, the phrase is Ruach Elohim, the breath of God, right? So at some level, the work we're trying to do at the Merriweather Group, and Bob, I think you do it with your clients, is to help them on their journey to remember that we are all connected. We are all imbued with our own divine souls. And if we are able to learn that in this life, not only do we have a better life, but there's a better world. And so we take that journey with our founders in hopes that they reach their defining moment and they recognize their divine souls. And as a result, we help to repair the world generally.
I feel like I just rewatched The Wizard of Oz. That's awesome, and I think all of us can relate to all of that. Ironically, or it's not ironic actually, but just interesting to me. I just reread a book I haven't read since junior high, and that's The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan.
One of the
And
best.
yeah, well, and little did I remember that's the second best selling book in the history of books, right behind the Bible.
That's right.
And of course, as I wasn't thinking of the hero's journey, but as I read about Christian leaving his town and going on the journey to the celestial city, it is exactly the story, he comes up against heroes, anti-heroes, mentors, anti-mentors on his journey to make it to the celestial city. I didn't even put that connection together until this conversation.
Yeah, most of us don't. And it's actually amazing. Once you have this framework, you'll start seeing it everywhere. It is a fascinating framework for us to look at our own lives through the lens. And it provides, I mean, mythology at the end of the day, myths are really things that we humans have created to help us with the big existential questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my connection with the divine? How do I have a life that matters? And so we create stories, and those stories help us to wrestle with those big questions. And the hero's journey is directly on point for that.
David, I want to double click into something you just mentioned, a life that matters. We have a lot of conversations to the entrepreneur, speaking to the entrepreneur on this show, and Bob obviously spends a lot of his time working with successful entrepreneurs. You do the same. A lot of these successful entrepreneurs, they probably, sure, they've had that hero's journey at some point to reach the level of success they have had. I mean, you did with Oregon Chai, but once you gets to this moment that we talk a lot about in terms of exit planning, when somebody is
Yep.
leaving that business and leaving
Yeah.
this journey that they've lived their whole life, well, then it comes to this conversation of what is that life that matters? What is that life of significance now that I'm leaving my baby, the journey, the thing I knew so much about? So what would you speak to about, like, that extra act of life, that best act, as we talk about?
Great question, Ryan.
Yeah, drum
Yeah,
it
it's
up.
not like you sell your business and now it's like, okay, I had my journey, peace out. I think, one of the beautiful things and real challenges of living an examined life is we're constantly taking these journeys, macro journeys and micro journeys, right? I recently launched my children off to college. Now they're both graduated from college, and it's a journey, a parenting journey of letting go and individuation and how to continue to define a love relationship with the very kids that you birthed into the world and raised, and now they're young adults, right? So I think that after if we're fortunate to have that event and we have completed that journey with our business, to redefine yourself and to say, well, what can I now do to serve my divine purpose in this world? What is it that I'm being called to do to continue to grow and learn? And importantly, how can I pay this forward? How can I enable those who are not yet on their journey or are just starting their journey to have this available to them, and to use your learnings and your experience to become a mentor and a guide in whatever ways, feels right to you.
No, I appreciate you clarifying that, because we've talked about this concept of, I've sold my business, now what?
Right.
The world is your oyster again, and
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you just had to go through that one hero's journey. It sounds
That's
like
right.
there might be a second journey on the other side of it all.
Multiple journeys. Absolutely.
And I believe there has to be. You have to heed your call. And of course, to heed your call, you have to be reflective and have mentors to help you determine your call, because it just doesn't pop out of the sky or come to you in a vision or a dream. I was listening to the radio this morning, and whoever does the World Happiness Index, the index says there's more anxiety, there's more stress, there's more concern globally than there ever has been. But one of the stats that stood out to me, which I thought was crazy, people have a higher feeling of anxiety and stress over retirement than they do over their death.
Yep.
That one shocked me.
That's incredible. That's an incredible statement. And we're seeing this data, right? People are more lonely. They're more stressed. They're more anxious. They feel unseen. They feel alone. There was a report that came out last week about people 18 to 35 years old, highest incidence in recorded medical history of need for antidepressants, anti-anxieties. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but my intuition tells me that's because we have separated ourselves from purpose and meaning, and from faith, and from opening ourselves up to the possibility that we have something that we can do here in this life that is not just about money and ego and awards. It can be, but it's not just about those things. that we are all intertwined, we're all interconnected, we're a collective, and that we can really truly repair the world while also taking good care of ourselves and our families. If you're just out there chasing the dollars, you may get them, but it will come at great cost. If you're out there focused on your purpose in your heart and what you feel in your heart to be your true calling, your truth, the money tends to follow you. And I'm just a big believer in that approach to living.
Well, we can now go to another book. Let's go to Dickens' A Christmas Carol and Scrooge, shall we?
Yeah,
And
right.
his hero's journey.
Yes,
Do you recall, David, the book of many decades ago called Bowling Alone?
I do.
Yeah, and do you recall it's like what's going on in our society, in our world, that people are going out to the movies by themselves. They're bowling alone. Everything comes down to relationships. Well, without getting too much on a soapbox, what social media has done and people with their iPhones.
Absolutely.
I was in line at a grocery store the other day, and I looked at my line. I looked at the lines to the left and to the right. 100% of everybody was staring at their iPhone.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Nobody was engaged with anybody else. They were
No
just
eye contact, no connection. We are more connected than we've ever been, and we're more alone than we've ever been. And so there's a problem there, right? There's something wrong. Again, I grew up, culturally in a Jewish home, and I'm not wed to any particular faith, but I'll tell you, I was having a conversation with a buddy last night, and I can't quote it exactly, but in Genesis, it was like, God created the earth and it was good. God created, animals and it was good. God created, it was good. And then God created man and it was not good because God realized man needed a partner. Man needed something more. It was the only one and it was good. And it was good. And so in that, I would argue God, however you want to define that, recognized that as human beings, we need community. We need a collective, because in the absence of that, even if we were all running around with our own individual relationship to God, if we had a world of individuals going to the movies by themselves, bowling by themselves, sitting on their iPhones by themselves, praying by themselves, that's not enough, God said. We need community. We need to be in community. And I've read within a number of different faiths, there's a big movement to individuation within your faith. Like, oh, I have my prayers I do. I have my prayer podcasts. I have my Bible reading I do. But less people are going to church or to synagogue or to the mosque where there is community. And God wants us to be in community. The iPhone, the iPad, social media serves to separate us, not bring us together. It's all about othering. What I have referred to as the tyranny of small differences. What is it about you that's different than me? What is it about me that's different than you? What do I believe in that you don't believe in? What do I want to vote for in November that you don't want to vote for in November? And as a result, we tear each other apart. We separate ourselves. We isolate ourselves. And that has real negative ramifications. And frankly, it goes against what we learned in Genesis.
That's right. And I do believe that when in Genesis, when Eve was created, God said it was very good.
Amen.
From good to good to good to very good.
Amen.
Whatever the Hebrew word might have been to emphasize that, right?
Amen. That's right. Yeah. So, I am I'm a lawyer, I'm a capitalist, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a partner in business, and I have nice things. I also am a faith-driven, spiritually driven person. I'm interested in my soul. I'm interested in things that are beyond the non-eternal of this moment in time. And I think we get to be both, right? We don't have to just go live on an ashram or an abbey and disengage. And we don't also just have to sit in our offices and count our money and try to decide one day if you're successful or not based on the stock market or anything else. We get to be both. And the word yoga actually just means union, right? So we get to create yoga, union, between being householders and being spiritual souls and divine incarnation. So, I have some tattoos, and one of the tattoos I have is the hand of God, which we see in the Sistine Chapel. And I think it's over my heart for a reason, which is, you have the hand of man, the hand of God, and there's a space in between. And that space is the tension between our lives as DNA, the thing that you can check on 23andMe, and our lives as divine incarnations. And the tension between those things is palpable. We feel it, right? But I believe our job and the journey and the work is about closing that gap and seeing how close we can get to being integrated body of cells and DNA and history and bank accounts and cars and marriages and kids, and a celestial soul made up of divine incarnation, and walking through this life as both. It's not easy, but we get to work at that.
Well, I thank you. Thank you. This has been such a great conversation so far, and I know we try to promise our audience not to make it go all Joe Rogan on them for 3.5 hours. I think we could do 3.5 hours. You have such an interesting journey. So let me ask you one last question.
Please.
As you think about your journey and everything that you've done, under the banner of relationships, what have been the most important mentors for you on both a positive level and those who were kind of anti-mentors, if you will?
Excellent question, especially with the question of mentors that can show up as positive and those that can be quote unquote negative. So firstly, on the positive side, early in my life, both of my grandmothers, maternal and paternal grandmothers, were incredible mentors to me. They really helped me to see from my youngest age how someone can be strong, family-oriented, driven, who can be caretakers and managers, and really hold a torch, and at the same time be soft and loving, and be vulnerable and caring and feminine. And so I was able to watch how these matriarchs carried the family and our community, and also provided me a place for a really warm, loving hug that I could melt into. And so that was very, very instructive for me. Also along the way, Heather, my partner of 33 years, really like a hippie, a free spirit, a go with the flow kind of person, and a manifester of incredible, beautiful things like Oregon Chai that made us a bunch of money, and how you can actually be both, right? You don't have to go to Stanford and get an MBA and be #1 in your class and then go work for Bain or McKinsey to be successful. You can be in touch with your truth and manifest beauty. On the negative side, there's a great author out there, Carlos Castaneda, and he's written too many books for me to quote all the names, but he refers to those people in your life that he calls tyrants. Big tyrants or little tyrants. And these people are hard, right? Often for us, they're the ones that cause us to feel sad or angry or resentful, but they hold up a mirror for us, and they allow us to see qualities in ourselves and in others that we don't want to be, or that we need to spend time with and learn. And I've certainly had those. I'm not going to name them by name, but I've had many people in my life that have been really challenging. And I've now reached a place in my life where I actually am grateful for those people, because sometimes it's through that we get to grow. And it isn't easy, but conflict can breed growth if you have the right perspective. My grandfather, who was an immigrant and not traditionally educated, used to say to me, when something really bad happens, don't say to yourself, why is this happening to me? Say, why is this happening for me? Don't be a victim. Look at it through the lens of, what can I learn from this to grow?
Well, David, thank you. And thank you so much for being so generous with your time. And I loved having you on this show, and hopefully maybe we can do it again sometime. I think we have
absolutely. Thank you both. Really honored to be with you here today. And if any of your listeners ever wanted to, get in touch and talk, pick up a copy of my book, whatever, I'm open, and maybe in the show notes or whatever, you can give them my email address or the URL for the Merriweather Group.
Perfect. And Bob, as we're talking about this entrepreneurial kind of founder's journey here today, you're having very similar conversations with your clients over at Oswego Private Wealth for anybody out there that would enjoy a conversation with you about that journey and the intersection of wealth management, what would be the best way somebody could get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, best way to reach us always is just go to our website, oswegoprivatewealth.com, and easy to connect with us, easy to set up a phone call, check out our other podcast, things that we're up to and things that we're doing, and love to talk to the entrepreneur on his hero's journey.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, appreciate you both for your time. Thank you so much. And folks, we're going to take a final moment here and thank everybody for making us a part of your day. If you enjoyed today's discussion, you learned a thing or two. I know I certainly did. Make sure you hit that subscribe button then on whichever platform you checked us out on today so that you don't miss out on any great conversations where Bob and I either dive into a unique wealth management topic or bring on an esteemed guest like David Howitt today. Really appreciate him and his time. Really some good conversation today.
Thank you both.
Of course, David. And for anybody out there, we're going to go ahead and say so long now, but we appreciate you guys stopping by and being with us on Lessons by the Lake.